What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Early Edge. We've got a great show for you today. We're obviously going to talk some baseball. We're going to talk some NFL futures, and we're waiting to talk some NBA and NHL finals. We'll be doing that later on this week, along with a couple of new things, including maybe some home run props and some promos that you need to hear about. Now, listen, Phil Terrazas said it all in the comments. We had a pretty rough day yesterday, and it's been a few days where it's been more down than up for sure. 1-4 is just not an acceptable result. We got to turn this thing around. Listen, a couple of these turned very late. Padres money line turned very late. Giants first five money line, my play at plus 105. Listen, there was so much sharp contact against Ryan Nelson. It just they weren't finding the gaps. They weren't finding the holes. We lose that first five 2-1. So this is what happens sometimes in the dog days of summer. Some of these baseball games can turn on the smallest thing. But again, that's not an excuse. It's not a reason. We got to go instead of 1-4. We got to go 4-1. And I got the right guys to do it. We have the sniper. We've got Zack, Cimini, and Lil Geppetto, otherwise known as Propstarz. He's with us today as well. Proppy, you're wearing a grin, which I love. Coming off a losing day, trying to stay positive. I see Zack smiling, Matt Sniper smiling. Proppy, how you feeling about the baseball slate today?
I'm feeling good, Sia, and I know some of the members in the chat will attest to going 2-0 on the site, 1-0-1, unfortunately, on the stream, but a 2-1 day overall yesterday for me. And those who watched HQ last night, I did a hit alongside my friend right there, Zack Cimini, and I gave out a home run prop, and I even mentioned sprinkling on 2 home runs, and Nolan Gorman, is that how you pronounce his name, hit 2 home runs.
Well, listen, we got the content everywhere. And for those of you that, for whatever reason, can't catch HQ, Proppy said the most important thing at the beginning there, SportsLine. That's where all of the picks are. Obviously, Early Edge, we want to go 5-6-0 every single day, but it's the Early Edge that has the sampling. It's SportsLine that has every single pick. Zack, that was a picture. For those of you watching on YouTube that didn't see that, that was a picture that you showed. What was it?
It is of Proppy with his Nolan Gorman prop on HQ last night. So you can see it right there. Best prop to hit a home run. Nolan
Very
Gorman.
Nice.
The truth.
loving the optics there. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we get in, Amax is in the chat, by the way. Speaking of MLB, if you have a question for him, Sniper is on the show, also in the chat. Fire away on the questions if you have them. But before we even get into baseball, I do want to talk about some NFC North futures. And the reason that, listen, we talked to NFC East last Friday. We're going to talk NFC North futures today. I think, and Proppy, I want to go to you first. I think this is the most interesting, the most intriguing division in all of football. And the reason I say that is because, first of all, the Caleb Williams thing, the Bears, they're good on both sides of the ball. We know that. We know J.J. McCarthy's in Minnesota. Justin Jefferson just signed his 4-year, $140 million contract. Those two teams are intriguing. But I think the Packers and Lions are like Super Bowl viable. And I don't think I'm breaking any news there, but I think both of these teams could land in the Super Bowl. You can make the argument that both of these teams should have beaten the San Francisco 49ers, and one of the two should have ended up in the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs. Two really good teams on the rise still. What do you like in the NFC North this year? I know it's early, but what do you like?
Yeah, I actually suggest 2 of my favorite team totals are going to be in this division here. And I'm starting with Green Bay. I actually love fading Green Bay. I think they are a serious regression candidate. I think a lot went right for Green Bay last year. They really snuck up on a lot of people, obviously, over the second half of the season. We saw Jordan Love play some very good football, but I think they'll have targets on their backs this year. Didn't love what they did in the offseason either. I know they do have a lot of young talent, but I see them as a serious regression candidate. I've also seen some 10.5s in the market as well. I love fading Green Bay if you can find them at 10.5. I like fading them at 9.5, but something to shop around for there. And then I love Minnesota Vikings. They're the biggest long shot in the division, but looking at their win total of 7.5 wins plus money to the over, I'm a big fan of this Vikings team. I think the brain trust of Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores is one of the best coaching tandems in the NFL. Watching this Vikings team over the second half of the year last year, despite not having viable quarterback play, their defense was phenomenal, and I love what they did in the offseason, adding Jonathan Grenard from Houston Texans, adding Andrew Van Ginkel, Blake Cashman, Shaq Griffin. They trade up for Dallas Turner. These are all viable starters for this defense. And again, I think Brian Flores is one of the best defensive minds in the league. So love what they did defensively. Then they have a ton of toys offensively. Adding Aaron Jones, that's a big upgrade over Alexander Madison at running back. They can get viable quarterback play out of Sam Darnold or J.J. McCarthy, which I think they will in comparison to what they had after Kirk Cousins went down. I really think this team flirts with 9, even 10 wins potentially if we're looking at the ranges of outcomes here. But yeah, I think this Minnesota team is going to be very competitive. They do have a very tough schedule. But yeah, looking at the Vikings, I love their roster personally.
That's not the take I was expecting, which is why we do these, by the way, everybody, because, I think it's very easy. Like, honestly, I'll be honest. My take is, hey, it's between the Lions and the Packers. And, I don't know how you stop the Packers offense right now. And so I like hearing what Proppy said about, hey, maybe some regression there. There's some people in the chat that agree with you. There's some Minnesota Vikings fan that say skull. And what's interesting, Sniper, is that you kind of pumped your fist when he mentioned Green Bay, but I'm not sure, was it because you thought he was going to say Green Bay is going to do well this year, or it's the other way, right? Because you're the Bears fan.
I just hate the Packers. So if anybody says anything bad about them, it causes me to pump my fist. So that was the extent of that. But okay, so I'll say this. This is going to be my homer take, right? As a diehard lifelong Bears fan. We saw CJ Stroud last year have great success as a rookie. So we know that in all likelihood, rookies are going to have growing pains, but it's possible to drop somebody into a good situation and see a rookie thrive here. And with the Bears, you had Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze too, DJ Moore, add an extra tight end on top of Cole Kmet, that throw Swift in the backfield. There's a great defense. You saw in the second half last year, the Bears defense was one of the better defenses in all of football. So Caleb Williams is being put into a situation where he has the opportunity to thrive here. And plus 375, I'm definitely going to play that. It's probably a homer play. And I do think, obviously, heading into the year, the Lions and Packers are better. No doubt about that. But, as Williams grows into using his weapons throughout the season, I think at least by the end of the year, the Bears are going to be a really, really tough team.
Yeah, it's an interesting take because they were winning a lot of games via the defense last year. Late in the season, they went on a nice little run. They were a formidable team.
You looked at the game at Cleveland where, Darnell Mooney dropped that Hail Mary, but you can't count on a Hail Mary. But the defense had the team in position to win that game. They just needed better offensive play. The last game of the season at Green Bay on Sunday Night Football, they just needed a better offense. If the offense can play anywhere close to what it looks like it's capable, this is going to be a darn good team.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, Zach, before we get into our official picks, your take on an NFC North division winner.
Yeah, I've got to go with the Green Bay Packers plus 210, but I do agree with Sniper on the Chicago Bears plus 375. I'd put a little small wager on them. Just the defense the second half of the year was the best in football last year. If any type of progression with that offense, with all the talent that they've added, they could definitely flirt. So maybe you look at taking the Detroit Lions as a prop at finishing third in the division and get a good plus payout there. But this Green Bay Packers team, there's been such a great organization at their grassroots approach, drafting talent. And Jordan Love, the first half of the year, he just didn't have it. Matt LaFleur had the short passing game, cost them a lot of games they should have won. They should have beat the Falcons, let them come back and win by a point. The sloppy game on Monday Night Football against the Las Vegas Raiders didn't have that primetime experience. And then against Pittsburgh, I think it was the most blatant, worst call of the year, where they reviewed that lateral play. It should have been a touchdown for the Green Bay Packers. They overturned it and the game flipped on that. So 3 early losses in the season. They turned it around towards the end of the year, 7-3 their final 10 games. And it wasn't just a Jordan Love progression. It was their young wide receivers that progressed upward in Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks. You also have Christian Watson. So for me, I also look at Jared Goff and this Detroit Lions team. We've seen their team come out of nowhere before when he was a part of the LA Rams in 2018 and then go backwards the following couple of years before he was shipped out. So I think the Lions definitely fall back. It's between the Packers and the Bears.
I was on a show, the show I do in DC with a very smart gentleman who liked Jordan Love to lead the league in passing yards because of the number at plus 2,000. I think it's interesting because of probably what you said about this Packers defense not being great and this offense, to Zach's point. I mean, listen, it doesn't matter who the receiver is. Like they're finding the holes, they're finding the gaps. I think Jordan Love is an interesting candidate to do some big things. And listen, this is coming from a non-Jordan Love fan. I've kind of had my mea culpa on that. He's a lot better than I thought he'd be. All right, let's finally get into, by the way, if you have a play, I see Lions all day from Big Cheesy. Rick Funcannon likes the Bears. Sox Nation says Super Bears, Super Bowl. You relax, Sox Nation. Listen, there's a lot of potential picks here. I love that we're doing this. I love that we're talking about bad calls in games that Zach's referencing on June 4th. It is fantastic. Let's get into some official plays, though. Sniper, let's start with you. We got to get back on track. No pressure here, but you got a couple baseball plays.
Yeah, and somebody in the chat mentioned Cubs on the run line because I know that we've faded the White Sox a lot, but I can't trust the Cubs at all right now. They're 5-14 in the last 19 games, so we're going to avoid that. I am going to go to Boston, and I've got the Braves in the first 5 by half run or winner, depending on which book you look and how they phrase it. Max Fried is who I'm tailing right here. Max Fried is totally locked in right now. 1.43 ERA in his last 7 starts. The Red Sox haven't seen him since 2020. With the way he's going, his stuff is going to look really funky to them. Plus, they don't hit that well against lefties. They're the 692 OPS against left-handed pitching, and they haven't hit well at home this year. 236 average with a 387 slugging percentage at home. On the other side, Cutter Crawford takes the mound for the Red Sox, 6.55 ERA in his last 4. And the Braves just saw him on May 7th. So a little bit of a quick turnaround there. I like the Braves offense getting a second look at him within a month. And I really love Fried. So this one should be smooth sailing. Also, we're going to go to Cleveland, and I'm just straight up taking the Guardians to win the game. -112 is what I locked in on SportsLine last night. I think it's skewed a little bit more toward the Guardians this morning, maybe -120, but that's why you need to look at SportsLine the night of. We'll get some plays out there when the lines are ripe for the picking. Seth Lugo on the mound for the Royals. He's been great this year. Very, very, very good. He might even be the All-Star game starter if they had it right now. Maybe him or Skubal. But he's due regression. He is good, but he's not 1.72 ERA good. And the Guardians are great at home. They're 20-7 at home. Tristan McKenzie on the mound for the Guardians hasn't been that great, but the Guardians do have one of the best bullpens in all of baseball. So if the Guardians can knock Lugo around a little bit in the early innings, it should be smooth sailing on this one as well. Those are my 2 plays today.
All right. Like the plays. Listen, I think that Kansas City one's going to be somewhat controversial because I know on this show, Kansas City's been a popular pick among a little bit from myself and Mike McClure. I know somebody on the chat there, but it does seem like Cleveland, Sniper, maybe not getting the respect they deserve, particularly at home.
Yeah, I totally agree. Look, I probably have been one of the ones early in the season who have disrespected the Guardians. At least in my power rankings, I've been yelled at by Cleveland fans all year about them being too low. But like, they're legitimately one of the top 5 teams in baseball right now. And the Royals have kind of started to hit the skids a little bit of late. And like I said, Lugo has been amazing, but he's due regression. He's not 1.72 ERA good.
All right. Well, if you're looking to make that bet or really any of the bets on this show, you can go to BetMGM. New BetMGM customers can sign up today and get up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Just place your first wager of at least $10. And you'll receive up to $1,500 instantly if your bet loses with bonus code EDGE. That's bonus code EDGE, EDGE. That's really a great promo if you haven't already tried it. And I've come to learn BetMGM is really listen, we have the early wedge later today at 7:00, by the way. And there are some bets on BetMGM that you can get that you can't get at other places. So all these books have pluses for different reasons, but BetMGM, certainly one of the better ones, especially when you consider this promo. All right, speaking of Royals Guardians, we have another play on this game, and it's courtesy of my second favorite Zack of all time. And we're going to hear it after this message from our partners.
Football action continues. Are you ready for this? Ready to take chances? As the gridiron is taken over by the Great White North. It's time to storm the... Catch the Canadian Football League on CBS Sports Network.
We are back on the early edge presented by BetMGM. And Zack, I teased it. You're also on this Royals Guardians game, but in a much different way.
Yeah, I focused on the total here, Sia, going over the 8 runs. I got this up on the site last night. Did get up to 8.5, now settled back down to 8. I'd be comfortable if it does move back up. Still taking the over on 8.5 runs. Sniper mentioned a lot of the same things I'm going to repeat here too. Strong pitchers on the mound. Seth Lugo at 1.72 ERA this year. Do think he can have a little bit of regression today. And Tristan McKenzie had an effective month of May in 6 starts with a 3.06 ERA. Bay. I definitely think early on in this game, maybe the first 3-4 innings, it'll be low scoring, 1-1 type of game. But this Kansas City Royals team, I think they're coming out of their worst stretch of the year. They had lost 6 to 7 games, had a tremendous comeback on Sunday, scoring 3 runs in the bottom of the 9th against the San Diego Padres. I think McKenzie struggles the second time through that order, maybe gives up a couple of runs or gets forced out of the game. And this is a divisional game, the 2 top teams in their division. Sniper mentioned the Guardians, 20-7 at home. So they're going to fight. They get down in this game. I think there's going to be some insurance runs late against the bullpens, or even the possibility of extra innings. Even if it's tied at 3-3 going into extra innings, I think we could get this over. So I'm going over the low total of 8 runs.
All right, over 8. Love the potential push scenario that can't be a push at 4-4. All right. Well, by the way, Larry Hartstein is also in the chat. I think A-Mags is still in the chat, but the Maestro also in the chat if you want to ask him any questions. And by the way, I'm going to give out my pick, and Proppy, I know you're going to give out your pick in a second. Dominic asks who we taking for Dinger Tuesday. If any of you throughout the pendency of Zack, you too, if any of you like a matchup so much that you want to give out a home run prop, don't hesitate. We're actually going to start doing that on this show. Maybe not on Tuesdays necessarily, but we're going to have some home run props for you during these, quote, dog days of summer. We've got actually a really exciting promo coming up that we'll put out there in a couple of days. A-Bag says he's still here taking notes. All right, well, he may not need to take notes on my pick because it's pretty chalky. I'm going with the team that's pretty good at baseball, the Yankees. I'm taking them first 5, but I can't do the money line because, well, that's going to cost a little too much. I'm taking first 5 -0.5 at -120. We have Heel on the mound for the Yankees, who's been excellent. I mean, really, truly a diamond in the rough here for the New York Yankees. And then we've got Ober on the other side, who started off the season pretty good, but over his last 3 outings has actually been pretty bad. The hard hit rate is really high. The earned runs, like all the basic stats are there in terms of like potentially him being on a bad path here, but certainly the advanced stats as well. I think when you're facing this Yankees lineup and you're looking for a get-right spot and you got to go to New York, this isn't the get-right spot for Ober, considering how he's done over the last few starts. So I really like the Yankees here at home with Heel on the mound. I'm taking the first 5 -0.5 because obviously I think the Yankees are going to touch up Ober for enough to cover this line. -120, the line's going, the juice is going up a little bit. It was probably like -110, -115 just 30, 45 minutes ago. Really like this play though with Heel on the mound, and the Yankees getting a day off yesterday. Remember, they had that West Coast trip. They flew back. They had a day off yesterday, and now they get to play the Minnesota Twins. Minnesota Twins do have some upgrades in the lineup. I believe Royce Lewis is back. Even still like the Yankees here quite a bit. All right, that's my play, ladies and gentlemen. We got to move on to a Propstarz. You've got to play, and it's a strikeout prop. What is it?
It is indeed, Sia. And shout out to my guys, Larry and A-Mags in the chat. I know A-Mags also likes this play as well, but it's Jesus Luzardo to go over 5.5 strikeouts. The Marlins are having a fairly miserable season, but Jesus Luzardo is not. He's having a very solid season. I'd argue the best season of his career. But what's been most impressive are the underlying metrics, particularly his strikeout metrics. I lean heavily on something called swinging strike percentage, and he has his career best swinging strike percentage by a significant margin, despite averaging over a K per inning. You could argue he's actually run cold on strikeouts, but he's been particularly good recently. He's had at least 6 strikeouts in 3 consecutive games in the month of May. He also has some pretty drastic home road splits, and that's been a theme throughout Luzardo's career. He's pitched much better at home, where this game is today, compared to on the road. So that is also in his favor. And then he's got just a tremendous matchup against the Tampa Bay Rays. They rank in the bottom 3 in K rate versus opposing southpaws. So this one checks all the boxes for me. He's a positive regression candidate. The underlying metrics look phenomenal. He gets a great matchup on paper. Love his chances of having at least 6 Ks. I also think this could be a potential ceiling game for him. So I'd also look at some of his alt lines as well. Wouldn't shock me if he had 8 or 9 Ks potentially in this game.
All right. Jesus Luzardo, ladder opportunity potentially there, but we're going to take the over 5.5 Ks at -130. Sniper, before we get to the recap screen, I noticed you put something in the chat because we were talking earlier about potential home run hitters Were you looking at Judge and Soto, or was there somebody else?
Yeah, sure. You can do Judge almost any day at this point. What I said I was tailing was your first 5 on the Yankees. I love that. That's a great play. But I mean, at this point, I've been all over the Judge 1.5 hits plus runs plus RBIs. If you can get it, a lot of times now it's 2.5 because he's averaging over 2.5 for the entire season. And he was terrible in the first 3 weeks. He's just been an absolute beast ever since then. So yeah, if there's any home run prop, you can never go wrong with Judge.
All right. And Philip Terrazas, that's the second time I've messed up your last name. Terrazas says Bregman home run plus 600. Ladies and gentlemen, yeah, exactly. Before we hit the recap screen, a reminder, I know I said it earlier, but the early wedge tonight, it's me, it's Eric Cohen, it's Patrick McDonald. We'll be talking the Memorial Tournament. Listen, this is a signature event. This is a big deal. And by the way, next week is the U.S. Open. This is if you've never caught the early wedge, this is probably the time to do it as we warm up to the third major. Like this preceding the U.S. Open, a pretty big deal to have these two tournaments back to back. I've already got some plays that I like. I've submitted my article to be published, so you'll see the front end of that article this afternoon, if not already. It might already be on there, and then you'll see the update to that article tomorrow. But tonight's show at 7 o'clock, we'll have all of my picks, Patrick McDonald's picks, and Eric Cohen's picks. It'll be a great show. So make sure you have your alerts on 7 o'clock tonight. All right. And Alex Jones says Sia just missed another first-round leader last week. That was a brutal. For those of you that don't know, we had a tie going into, it was going to be Sean O'Hare and Sam Burns tied for the first-round lead. Sam Burns was 40-1. It would have been chopped to 20-1 because he was splitting with Sean O'Hare. And then that would have been chopped again to 13-1 if there was a three-way tie, 13-1, nothing to basically, like 13-1 is still great, right? And unfortunately, somebody hit a 47-foot putt. David Skins hit a 47-foot putt to take the outright lead on the second to last hole. An extremely improbable result. So we'll hopefully hit a first-round leader, maybe an outright. I've been kind of cold on outrights. Maybe I hit an outright this week, but it's probably going to be Scotty Scheffler, folks. Let's take a look at the recap screen. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to bounce back, and we're going to do it with Matt Sniper. Braves first 5, -0.5 at -110, and Guardians moneyline -112. I've got the Yankees first 5, -0.5 at -120. Proppy, Jesus Luzardo over 5.5 Ks at -130. And Zack Attack, Zack Cimini, Royals, Guardians over 8, -125. All right, ladies and gentlemen, nothing to sneeze at. That's what I was looking for, Eric David. Oh, thank you. See, Eric David and I are so close now. He's basically finishing my sentences. That really is the term of art I was looking for. Thank you, Eric David. See, you guys are always picking me up. You're always hitting the like button. You're always asking questions. You're always making comments and putting bets in the chat. Moshi, I see you. Big Cheesy, all of you putting bets in the chat. Long Money Larry. Love everybody's participation in here. Let's have a bounce back day. We'll see you on this very show tomorrow. We'll see you tonight on the early wedge. On behalf of Zack Cimini, on behalf of Propstarz, on behalf of the Sniper and Jake the Snake on the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s, I am the counselor. This is the early edge. Let's have a great day, everybody. We rest our case.